Hey gang, Chris here from Rasayana, and I am taking a couple of minutes to invite you into my personal kitchen for me to share with you a little bit about ghee, or clarified butter, as most of you know it. I usually buy my ghee just because I'm a busy business owner and don't always have time to make it, but here I am finding myself amidst my seasonal cleanse and my ghee reservations are low. And so it's easy enough to make, and I thought I'd share with you how to do it in your own kitchen. So ghee is clarified butter. It is butter that has been cooked slowly over a low-medium heat and burning off the milk solids. And there are a couple of things that make ghee so unique and give it its medicinal value in Ayurveda. One is that it's very good to the bugs in our GI tract. So the natural microbes that live in our intestinal tract feed off of the main ingredient in ghee, which is butyric acid. This is for a happy, healthy colon, guys. So this feeds the bugs in the GI tract, and it also enkindles a digestive fire. So this stokes up our appetite and our capacity to digest food thoroughly and convert that nourishment into strong, healthy tissue. So while I have my pan warming here over medium heat, I'm just going to talk with you as I go through the process. I'm using just a stainless steel pan here. I have a medium size quart, I think it's might even be, 1.5 quart size saucepan here. And I'm not going to be making a whole lot of ghee. I'm going to begin with 2 pounds of organic unsalted butter that I picked up from Whole Foods. You don't want to use salted butter. And know that even if you begin with a pound of butter, you aren't going to end up with a pound of ghee because you're reducing this down to its deepest and most essential components. So I'm just going to unwrap these and throw them in. You don't need to cut them up or anything. You don't need to thaw them out. Just pop them right in. Now, judging from the size of this pan, I may not be able to put my whole 2 pounds of butter in here. I'm kind of doing a little bit of guesswork with the size here, so I might just do 1 pound. You'll get the idea. You can hear some of the crackling as the butter starts to melt. And for a lot of you who might be sensitive to dairy, often I get asked, well, is it really dairy-free? Yeah, it is. You're cooking off those milk solids, and while there may be some trace elements of dairy, depending on how thorough a filtering job you do, it's not likely to cause any kind of allergic reaction for you. If you're concerned about that and feel like your tolerance of dairy is so sensitive that you don't want to chance it, then just go ahead and buy ghee from your local store. And chances are those are going to be certainly very well filtered. So really it's just a matter of being patient and not disturbing the ghee once it gets going. So once that gets going, I'll bring the camera over more closely so you can see. But while that gets started, I'm going to talk about some of the other qualities about ghee. Now, I use ghee not only when I'm cleansing, but I use it as a condiment now in a lot of my daily food when I need a little bit more moisture. And that's one of the other wonderful qualities about ghee, is that it's deeply nourishing and it's very subtle to the body. It's very sukshma. It has a sukshma quality, we would say, in yoga and Ayurveda. And that subtleness is what allows for a deep penetration into the body's tissues, down to the deepest layers of tissues. It is a substance that can cross the blood-brain barrier and nourish the brain itself. And so ghee is revered in Ayurveda as a medicine for its nourishing properties, for its capacity to enkindle Agni, our digestive fire, for its capacity to feed that really ecosystem that we have in our guts, so that those microbes can do its job in digesting our food and keeping us really healthy. Ghee also has a cooling quality to it, a cooling property to it. So that makes it very good in the treatment of burns. And oftentimes in Ayurveda, various botanical herbs will be cooked down into a decoction and then further cooked into ghee, which is the vehicle or the delivery system for that botanical. Because it's so sukshma and subtle, and because it's a very high quality fat, the lipid structure to it is similar to the lipids that our body naturally makes. And so with that lipophilic relationship between our bodies and the ghee is such that allows for some deep absorption and penetration of the ghee itself and of whatever medicine that's been cooked into it, whatever formula's been into it. You can use ghee as a substitute for olive oil or coconut oil or any other cooking oil that you might be using. It does have a very small amount of cholesterol in it, certainly much less cholesterol as compared to butter. So if you are someone who has high cholesterol, know that ghee is safe to use in moderate dosages. I would say typically between 1 to 2 tablespoons of ghee a day is a nice dosage for everyone, and certainly safe enough for those with high cholesterol. And so you can use it like a condiment. I've drizzled melted ghee on top of my dishes. I've used ghee on an empty stomach first thing in the morning as part of an Ayurvedic cleanse protocol. And I've used it topically, as I said, for treatment of burns. And so once this gets started, you'll, let me see if I can bring the camera over a little bit closer, as I'm learning how to shoot these videos here. And hopefully you can see down into the pot. And you see there's a little bit of foam there on top. And that's natural. You don't want to clear that away. Just let it be. And this will eventually cook further and further down, probably over, I'd say, 20 to 30 minutes or so over medium heat, uncovered and undisturbed. Just let it melt. And then you'll begin in the next stage of the process to hear some crackling and popping that goes on. And that's the milk solids being burned off and separated. The moisture is actually, or the water is leaving the ghee. And then you'll start to even smell a nutty aroma. And then there'll be a point where it goes from this yellow pale color to a clear color, like a golden clear substance. So after about 20 minutes or so, you might use a clean, dry utensil. You don't want to introduce any moisture into the ghee. Moisture will make ghee go bad. So anytime you work with ghee, you want to make sure you're using clean, dry utensils. And as it cooks, you'll be able to gradually push that top foamy, bubbly layer aside and look down. And once you're able to see clearly down to the bottom of the pan is when the ghee is done. And take it off of the heat, let it cool down before you filter it. So those are my tips in how I make ghee. And we're just going to let that cook down, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Hey guys, I'm back again, and now the ghee is just about ready. So I'm going to turn off the heat. And I can tell it's ready because the smell of the ghee is a bit nutty, almost like popcorn, it smells like. and the crackling and the hissing as the moisture is being released starts to die down. And using my clean spoon here, I can very carefully and lightly, see if you can see this, push some of that foam at the top away. You can see how this is much more clear than we started, and the milk solids are settling down at the bottom of the pan. And so you don't want to be disturbing those at the bottom. That's what we want to filter out. So I'm going to take that off of the heat and let that cool down for a few minutes until it's warm, and use just some cheesecloth to filter it out. So I've just cut a small square and folded it over on itself a couple of times, so I have this nice thorough filtering mechanism. And I'm gonna pour my ghee into this bell jar here, and I have a little stainless steel funnel that I bought locally at Cambridge Naturals, a wonderful natural food store here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that I love, and it works well for me. So since I'm making a relatively small batch, I'm going to use that and just pour it into my bell jar. So as I do that, I'm going to do it nice and slowly because I don't want those milk solids on the bottom to come into the jar. So let me see if I can adjust this so you can maybe see it a little bit better. It's hard when I don't have a camera person to man the screen, but hopefully that's visible enough for you to see. So very carefully, I'm going to pour this in the filter, trying not to disturb the milk solids that are clinging to the pan at the bottom. And you see that the color here is this beautiful golden clear liquid, not that opaque yellow color that we started with when it was still butter. You can see even some of the milk solids at the bottom of the pan started to brown lightly. And I'm told that that substance can also be used medicinally in Ayurveda, but I do not know how. So today I'm just teaching you how to make the ghee and why you want to use it. It really is a wonderful nourishment for the gut and a high quality fat that is safe for all. It does not taste like butter, however, so don't expect it to taste like butter. It can have a bit of an acquired taste, but I assure you that this is some of the best medicine in town. It really, really is, folks. Whether you decide to make it or go to your local store and buy it, just get it in you. And your gut and colon will thank you. You'll have much more pleasant potty time and be able to have some healthy poops, and elimination certainly helps mitigate constipation and dry tissues, dry colon, which is so common in clients that I see. And then as this continues to cool, it will solidify at room temperature, much like coconut oil. And you want to just be sure not to introduce any moisture into it. That is when it starts to go bad. So that's really hot right now. Let's see if I can use this and hold it up for you to see this beautiful color that it's turned to. I mean, look at that. That is just gorgeous, folks. Gorgeous. So I'm going to let that continue to cool without putting the cap on right away. I don't want any condensation from it cooling down to then drip back into the ghee. So I'm just going to let that cool down naturally, and once it solidifies, put my cover on it, and it is very shelf stable. You can have ghee hanging around for many weeks, many months, as long as you keep it from getting any moisture or water in it. So that being said, go to it. Try it out. I hope it works well for you. And if you burn a batch of ghee, hey, that's part of the learning curve. I've burned many a batch myself. So use practice, use patience, and let me know how things work. Namaste.